What is up, my friends, and welcome to another edition of the AEW Week in Review. I'm your host, Mark Perry, editor of Pro Wrestling News Hub, covering pro wrestling and not sports entertainment. On this week's show, COVID problems and more. We'll get into that, plus recaps of this week's Dynamite and Dark and the latest TV ratings. How do you get in touch with the show? You email podcast at prowrestlingnewshub.com with your MP3s, videos, or call 888-430-7692, extension 3. Cutoff time, remember, is 6 p.m. Eastern on Thursdays. And remember to leave us a review on Apple Podcasts. We will read it on the show. Question of the week, we asked you, do you think FTR is overrated? You've heard me talk about it at length. We'll get into some of your social media stuff, as well as next week's question. We want to know the top 3 heels in AEW. Now that it seems like Kenny Omega's shifting, Cody's got black hair, the Young Bucks are mean. Now we're getting some more heels. Where are they? Who are the best heels in AEW? I mean, I could think of a couple off the top of my head, but we're going to let you answer that question. So before we get into the show, we just want to announce that Serena Deeb has signed with AEW. Just want to throw that out there as a news tidbit of the week. Glad to see that she's on board. I think that will definitely help their women's division, and I think she could be potentially a good coach for them as well. So that being said, without further ado, folks, let's just get into the week that was AEW. All right, let's take a look at the AEW Dark results from September 22nd. First, Dark Order, Evil Uno, and Stu Grayson defeated Fuego del Sol and Rembrandt Lewis. I think Rembrandt Lewis' first time on AEW Dark. Ricky Starks defeated Christopher Daniels in a singles match. This was a good, decent matchup on AEW Dark that you usually don't see. The Butcher and the Blade defeated Puff and Calvin Stewart, both making their debuts on AEW Dynamite. Puff is a very big 500-pound dude. Will Hobbs defeated Serpentico in a singles match. The Lucha Brothers, Pentagon and Rey Fenix defeated Deontay and Max Stardom in a tag match. Alan Angels and Preston Vance, Dark Order defeated Ricine and Xander Gold in a tag match. Bad Boy Joey Janela and Sonny Kiss defeated Kevin Blackwood and Daniel Garcia in a tag match. And the Gun Club, Billy and Austin defeated Mbadu and Cruz in a tag match. Serena Deeb, the newly signed to AEW, defeated Kaylin King in a women's match. Ben Carter, who a lot of people are talking about and want AEW to sign, defeated Lee Johnson in a singles match. And we saw this with Will Hobbs, and all of a sudden Ben Carter be wondering if I thought actually Lee Johnson was going to win this match, but Ben Carter takes the win. I thought maybe Lee Johnson was getting signed, but it looks like maybe Ben Carter is getting signed. He's impressing a lot of people very quickly. And finally, Eddie Kingston defeated Brian Pillman Jr. in a singles match. AEW Late Night Results. This is that special Tuesday night edition of the AEW Dynamite that was pre-recorded earlier. First match of the night, Scorpio Sky defeated Ben Carter in a singles match. People were talking about how well Ben Carter did in that match. Anna Jay defeated Brandy Rhodes in a singles match. I was pretty surprised by this, but apparently Anna Jay choked her out. And then Shawn Spears defeated Matt Sydal in a singles match. So all in all, this was a pretty decent 1-hour episode of AEW Dynamite. And it was on very late, like after midnight, and did well in the ratings. AEW Dynamite results for September 23rd. We're live from Daly's Place. First up, we got Miro making his in-ring debut with Kip Sabian versus Joey Janela and Sonny Kiss. Winner, Miro and Kip Sabian. I gave this one a 3. This was good. A little bit of rust with Kip Sabian, a little bit of rust from Miro and Joey Janela. These guys haven't really worked together before. That's why it was a 3. But it was still a fun match. It was great to see Miro out there, and he's looking great, like a beast, in great shape. Eddie Kingston comes out and cuts an awesome promo on Jon Moxley, making fun of sports entertainment versus wrestling, which was good. A surprise match. We got Hangman Adam Page versus Evil Uno. This one wasn't announced. Winner, Hangman Adam Page, grade 3.25. Page always puts on good matches, and Evil Uno did well. This was a good match, fun match to watch, and a surprising one. We got a check-in from Matt Jackson. These guys with the Young Bucks are turning heel, of course. We got Brody Lee, Mr. Brody Lee versus Orange Cassidy. This was probably the match of the night. Mr. Brody Lee with the win. I gave this a 3.50 on the match, but this one was a good match and a fun match to watch. Cody Rhodes comes out after Mr. Brody Lee wins with a new hair color, black hair color. What do you think of that? And Brody Lee was mad. Cut a weird kind of promo on Cody. We'll see what's going on with there. Matt Hardy confronts the Inner Circle. Le Champion comes out there, and then we're going to get a fight next week between Le Champion and Isaiah Cassidy. We'll get into that. Then we had an FTR segment, which I tweeted out that was really boring, probably the lullest part of the night until Best Friends came out, and they had a little thing going back and forth. I'm not a huge FTR fan. We got the tag match. Hikaru Shida and Thunder Rosa versus Diamante and Ivelisse. Winner, Hikaru Shida and Thunder Rosa. I gave this one a 2.75. It was still a little lulls here and there, but I think with Shida and Thunder Rosa and Ivelisse, they all did pretty well. From what I'm hearing, it looks like Thunder Rosa is done with her run in AEW for now, so we won't see her on TV. I guess it was like a 4 or 5 shot wrestling deal, and I think now that they've gotten some women on the roster, I think they're going to start promoting some other people. So now this kind of closes that chapter, and we'll see where the women's division goes next. Chris Jericho and MJF have a little conversation. Interesting to go where that's going. Finally, we got Jon Moxley versus Eddie Kingston. And this was a good match. Winner, Jon Moxley. I gave it a 3.25. This was a good match. A little slow at first, but still, I mean, Eddie Kingston was slapping the heck out of Jon Moxley. Poor Jon Moxley's chest was beet red. This was fun. And then, of course, at the end, there was a big brawl, and Will Hobbs came out, and Darby Allin came out. So we'll see how all this is going to play out next week on Dynamite. Next week's matches for AEW Dynamite were announced. We got some of them for you right here. We got Ricky Starks versus Darby Allin. We've got a tag match, FTR, Cash Wheeler and Dax Harwood versus SCU, Scorpio Sky and Frankie Kazarian. I'm glad Scorpio Sky is in there and Frankie to carry this one because I think FTR is boring. I've said that before. Dr. Britt Baker returns. We'll see if she gets in the ring and with some action. Maybe it's her in a tag match with somebody, but Dr. Britt Baker returns, which is good to see her back out there. Hopefully she's back at 100%. Chris Jericho versus Isaiah Cassidy. This has some intrigue in this match, dating back to their tag match they had a little while ago. And then, of course, we get a check-in from Jon Moxley as well. More to come as the week comes through. Check out Pro Wrestling News Hub for all the latest for this next AEW Dynamite and more. The ratings are in for Wednesday, September 23rd edition of AEW Dynamite. Thanks to our pals at Showbuzz Daily. AEW finishes 9th overall for the night. Dynamite drew 835,000 viewers, slightly down from last week's 886,000 viewers. They finished 3rd overall last week. Dynamite was live this week at Daly's Place in Jacksonville, Florida, featuring Brody Lee, Mr. Brody Lee, versus Orange Cassidy for the TNT Championship, and Jon Moxley versus Eddie Kingston, a match that was changed at the last minute due to Lance Archer being out. NXT, on the other hand, drew 696,000 viewers, slightly up from last week's 689,000 viewers. It finished 38th overall. Last week, they finished 31st overall. The show featured Kyle O'Reilly winning the first ever Gauntlet Eliminator match for the NXT Championship, for an NXT Championship opportunity. The total combined wrestling audience for both shows was slightly down, 1.531 million viewers. It was 1.575 million viewers last week.
still a good number because in the past, I believe it was like 1.4 million, 1.3 in that range. Based on the ratings, the NBA and NHL playoffs plus SportsCenter took up 6 spots in the top 15. 7 news shows finished in the top 15. The NBA playoffs, of course, won the night with 2 Fox News shows coming in 4th and 5th to make up the rest of the top 5. In the 50 plus demo, most love watching Fox News. So stable numbers just like they had last week. It'll be interesting to see once the NBA playoffs is done.
Lance Archer is out for this week's AEW Dynamite and for the next 2 weeks because he tests positive for COVID-19. Due to that, they had to change the main event. So details came in that Lance Archer, he basically posted the following on his Twitter account. Quote, "When I returned from our last show, a family member was ill when I got home. I found out later a friend who had taken my family member to the vet for our dash hound was COVID positive. While at home now, I've also gotten sick, tested positive. I feel okay. Expect to see me in 2 weeks." Close quote. He later went on to say, quote, "Don't think things change between John Boy. 21 days till All Out crowns a new champion live on TNT on the anniversary show." So he's still planning on being there in 21 days, which he should be good by then. Tony Khan then announced that Jon Moxley will take on Eddie Kingston for the AEW Championship on Dynamite. He says, quote, "Tonight on Dynamite Live on TNT, Jon Moxley and Eddie Kingston for the AEW Championship. There were questions about if Eddie's Battle Royale elimination was valid. Lance plus Eddie were the final 2. Lance threw him off the top, but not over. Now Eddie gets his shot." Close quote. Eddie Kingston, of course, is very excited. He goes, "Ooh, really? Ha ha ha. I've never been eliminated." So there you have it. So Lance Archer is out for 2 weeks with COVID-19. Affects the main event of Dynamite this week and possibly for the next couple weeks. So we wish our thoughts and prayers with Archer and his family, and we hope that they get a speedy recovery. AEW made some changes to their COVID testing procedures due to some recent issues with some wrestlers. All Elite Wrestling officials have decided to change their COVID testing policy for anyone working its TV tapings at Daly's Place in Jacksonville, Florida. Wrestling Inc. is reporting that new protocols have started this Wednesday at this Wednesday's AEW Dynamite taping. Those wrestlers who are working the show will get tested from home first and then get tested on site. The report noted that medical staff consulted with the NFL COVID response team to update their new testing process. And of course, that makes sense since Tony Khan and his father owned the Jacksonville Jaguars. There you go. So before the new procedure, AEW would have people sent to an off-site facility the morning of tapings to have a blood test done. Once passing the test, they are given a wristband and taken to Daly's Place. This new process about having these wrestlers tested at home first before they make their way to Jacksonville adds an extra layer of protection as we get into this fall months when supposedly this thing could maybe get a little worse. So Lance Archer and Ben Carter have already confirmed they tested positive for COVID. So it seems there have been some issues since the last set of TV tapings. That Ben Carter, I believe, mentioned that he got this after, in between the tapings and not after the tapings that he was part of. So today we reported that multiple wrestlers tested positive since the September 9th set of TV tapings, but it doesn't look like these guys got it while being at an AEW TV taping, but got it later on, which is something that we need to be concerned about. And hopefully this adds a little extra layer of protection to keep those wrestlers safe for the fall and winter months. AEW possibly launching a second video game soon? So it was first revealed by AEW Executive Vice President Cody Rhodes, as well as other EVPs like Kenny Omega and the Young Bucks, back in August of 2019 that AEW is considering to come up with their first ever video game.
It was then noted by Omega and Cody that creating a video game would take some time and they didn't want to rush things and they wanted to make sure they would create a very good game. La Champion, the demo guide, Chris Jericho, then said that Omega and Aubrey Edwards are the ones in charge of the direction of the game. We heard from Aubrey Edwards on Chris Jericho's podcast a while back talking about spending time, the two of them working on this video game idea and what they wanted to do with it. Jericho also said they want their first video game to be done right and not to be done half-assed. Well, it seems AEW will be developing potentially a second video game called All Elite Wrestling Elite General Manager, or Elite GM, as the company recently filed to trademark those terms with the United States Patent and Trademark Office. Interesting. There's no word yet on when AEW will launch their first ever video game, which will be whether it be on the Xbox or PlayStation, but it reportedly said that the game is in production and they're currently working on it. Now, with this game, I wonder if this is more of like a web-based game maybe, and not a video game on the Xbox. Elite General Manager, I'm thinking maybe fantasy wrestling or maybe like a pick'em style game. So we'll have to stay tuned and see. But I'm not really sure if this would be considered like a video game that you would play on the Xbox or PlayStation. But we will find out. Probably not until sometime in the middle of next year.
Did you know you can get all the latest AEW news right from your phone? That's right, we're excited to announce the Pro Wrestling News Hub app. That's right, and it's free. You can get it for your iPhone. You can get it for your Google Android phone. And they're both free. You get all our breaking AEW news, information from Pro Wrestling News Hub right from your phone. You can just visit the Apple Store or the Google Play Store. What do you get? You get the latest news from Pro Wrestling News Hub. You get push notifications when a new post or story comes out. You get our podcast on the phone. You can leave us a review on iTunes, links to our social media, and so much more. All you have to do is, if you have an iPhone, go to the iTunes store and just look up Pro Wrestling News Hub and download it. Just type in AEW News. You can get our phone app, and guess it is free, my friends. It's free. So head over. You get all the latest news right from your phone, from your friends from Pro Wrestling News Hub, whether you have an iPhone or an Android. And it's best of all, it's free. All right, let's get to our social media stuff real quick. Rondo Machete on the YouTube says it's sad that the fans who tuned in last week missed out on a great shows this week, especially with AEW putting on one of their best shows. He's talking about last week's shows and the parking lots. We had in the millions, 1 million people watching AEW. Then the week after that, it was like 800,000. He said, also, I'm 50 plus and only watch wrestling when it's on. Think I'm going to tune out for news. Forget about it. Now, he's saying he's in. I only watch wrestling when it's on. Think I'm going to tune out for news? Forget about it. Rondo Machete checking in. King of Wrestling, another stomping at the hands of the, quote, pissant, close quote, wrestling company. Thanks for those messages there. Talking about last week's ratings, not this week's rating. AEW's John Moxley set to compete in Josh Barnett's Bloodsport. We'll see about that with all the virus things going on and wrestlers getting sick. Sonny says, I'm fully in support of him. I would love to go see it. I mean, it's only a week or two away. He'll have an AEW taping and then that. You just don't want to get him exposed. Like, then what happens with your championship match? These indie shows that these guys are doing, it's getting a little hairy out there. Gray on Cody Rhodes reportedly making his return, which he did make his return. He said, great, the Prince of Wrestling is back now. I'm looking forward to what he's going to do about the Elite. Yeah, it's going to be interesting. The Young Bucks, Kenny. It seems like they were all faces in the beginning, and now they get to kind of baby faces when the company started. Now they're going to kind of branch off and do their own thing, and we'll see where this takes us in year two. I would assume this has been planned way in advance, you would think. That was the Facebooks. On the Twitter, $2 Steak says, talking about FTR, if you think they're overrated, and we've ad nauseum discussed that, what I think. Says, I wouldn't say overrated, but more overdue for a great title run.
not just one, so they'll stay. Interesting. Uncle outer underscore circle underscore says, I don't think they are overrated in the ring, but in my opinion, they are only interesting outside the ring as long as Tully is doing the talking. Now, I posted something on social media last about them kind of being in a boring segment. A lot of people agreed with me there. So that's it for your social media this week. All right, that is it for this week's show. Remember to follow us or email if you want to be part of the show, podcast@prowrestlingNewsHub.com or call 888-430-7692 extension 3. Remember, top heels in AEW. That is our question of the week. We want to hear from you, see what you think. Follow us everywhere, Facebook, Twitter, Instagram, YouTube. Make sure YouTube, give us a like and subscribe on YouTube, Pro Wrestling News Hub. Plus, download our apps. Leave us a review on Apple Podcasts. We'll read it on the show. We appreciate that. And you can listen to us everywhere you get podcasts. Show notes, prowrestlingnewshub.com/AEW-podcast. Join our Discord. The links are in the show notes. And that is it for me, folks. Thanks for listening. We'll see you next week. Mahalo. God bless. Put those masks on. We want to keep our wrestlers safe. God bless, and I will see you all later.